The morning sun cast long shadows across the industrial district of New Kepler Station, a massive space habitat orbiting the gas giant Proxima 7. Steam rose from the cooling vents of countless workshops and factories, creating a permanent haze that hung like a blanket over the lower levels. In this maze of metal and machinery, where the constant hum of engines mixed with the shouts of workers, few noticed the small family huddled in the abandoned cargo bay of Sector 7. Zara pressed her 3 kits closer to her chest, their tiny white forms barely visible against her own pale fur. Her red eyes, a striking feature that marked her as different from the typical golden-eyed Feline, scanned the empty corridors nervously. The kits mewed softly, hungry and cold, but she had nothing left to give them. It had been 2 days since their last meal, and the meager credits she had saved were long gone. The Feline were a proud species, known throughout the galaxy for their exceptional reflexes, keen intelligence, and natural ability with technology. Their homeworld of Phalaris Prime was renowned for producing some of the finest engineers and pilots in known space. But Zara and her family carried a genetic difference that made them outcasts even among their own people. Their albinism, while rare and beautiful to some species, was considered a curse among the Feline. Ancient superstitions claimed that white-furred Feline brought misfortune to any ship or station they boarded. Zara's mate, Kess, had died in a mining accident 6 months ago. The other Feline workers claimed it was proof of the curse, that his white fur had doomed the entire mining crew. Never mind that the accident was caused by faulty equipment and poor safety protocols. Never mind that Kess had actually saved 3 other miners before the tunnel collapsed on him. The superstition was stronger than facts, and Zara found herself blacklisted from every job she applied for. Her eldest kit, Nyx, was barely old enough to understand why other Feline children ran away when they saw him. At 7 years old, he had his mother's distinctive red eyes and snow-white fur, but also his father's gentle nature and curious mind. He was fascinated by machines and technology, often taking apart discarded electronics he found in the scrap heaps. His sisters, the twins Sava and Lyra, were only 3 years old and still innocent to the cruelty of the galaxy around them. The sound of approaching footsteps echoed through the cargo bay, and Zara's ears flattened against her head. Security patrols had been searching this sector more frequently, and she knew it was only a matter of time before they were discovered. She had tried the shelters, but even the charitable organizations seemed uncomfortable housing a cursed family. The other refugees complained, claiming their presence brought bad luck to everyone. "Mama, I'm hungry," whispered Sava, her tiny voice barely audible. "I know, little star," Zara murmured, using the pet name she had given her daughter. "Mama will find food soon." But even as she spoke the words, Zara felt despair creeping into her heart. She had tried everything. She had begged in the market districts, only to be chased away by disgusted merchants. She had offered to work for free, but no one would risk employing her. Even the criminal organizations, who were usually desperate for skilled technicians, wanted nothing to do with an albino Feline. The footsteps grew closer, and Zara gathered her kits, ready to run once again. But as the footsteps approached their hiding spot, she heard something unexpected, whistling. It was a cheerful, human melody that seemed completely out of place in the grim industrial corridors. The footsteps slowed, then stopped just outside the cargo bay entrance. "Hello?" called a voice, warm and distinctly human. "I don't mean to disturb anyone, but I heard some little ones in there. Everyone okay?" Zara remained silent, holding her breath. Humans were relatively new to this part of the galaxy, and she had heard mixed stories about them. Some said they were violent and unpredictable, while others claimed they were surprisingly compassionate. She had never interacted with one personally. "Look, I can tell someone's in there," the voice continued. "I'm not security or anything like that. Name's Jake Morrison. I run a repair shop about 2 blocks from here. I was just heading to work when I heard what sounded like hungry kits." There was a long pause, then the sound of something being set down on the ground. "I'm going to leave some food and water right here by the entrance," Jake said. "Take your time, no pressure, but if you need help, my shop is called Morrison's Fix-It. Big sign, can't miss it. Red and yellow letters." Zara heard the footsteps retreating, growing fainter until they disappeared entirely. She waited for several more minutes before cautiously approaching the entrance. There, just as the human had promised, was a thermal container of food and several bottles of clean water. The aroma that escaped when she opened the container made her stomach growl painfully. It was some kind of protein stew, still warm, with bread and what looked like synthesized milk packets clearly meant for young kits. Nix appeared beside her, his red eyes wide with wonder. "Mama, why did the human help us?" Zara had no answer. In all her years of traveling the galaxy with Kess, she had rarely encountered such kindness from strangers, especially not when they learned what she was. She portioned out the food carefully, making sure her kits had their fill before taking anything for herself. The stew was simple but nourishing, and for the first time in days, she felt a spark of hope. As the kits ate, Zara found herself thinking about the humans' offer. She had heard that humans were newcomers to galactic civilization, having only achieved faster-than-light travel within the last century. Their technology was considered primitive by most standards, but they had a reputation for ingenuity and determination. More importantly, they seemed to lack the ancient prejudices that plagued many of the older species. After the meal, Zara decided to scout the area around the human's shop. She left the kits hidden in the cargo bay with strict instructions for Nix to keep his sisters quiet and safe. The repair shop was exactly where Jake had said it would be, a modest establishment squeezed between a parts supplier and a chemical recycling plant. Through the windows, she could see Jake working on what appeared to be a damaged power coupling. His movements precise and efficient despite using tools that looked ancient by galactic standards. Jake was a typical human male, she supposed, though she had little experience for comparison. He was tall and lean, with brown hair that seemed perpetually messed up and kind eyes behind protective goggles. His clothes were practical work gear, stained with grease and obviously well used. What struck her most was his manner. He worked with a quiet confidence that spoke of genuine skill, humming that same cheerful melody she had heard earlier. As she watched, another customer entered the shop. Zara recognized him as a Valdorian merchant, his blue-scaled skin marking him as a member of one of the galaxy's most successful trading species. The Valdorian was clearly agitated, gesturing wildly at a small device he carried. "This piece of junk stopped working in the middle of a crucial deal," the Valdorian snapped. "I need it fixed immediately." Jake examined the device, a high-end Valdorian communication array, worth more than most people made in a year. "I can see the problem," he said calmly. "The quantum resonance chamber has been overcharged. Probably happened if you tried to boost the signal beyond safe parameters." "I don't care why it broke," the Valdorian hissed. "Just fix it, and it better not cost me a fortune. I know human technology is primitive." Zara watched Jake's expression carefully, expecting to see the anger or wounded pride that such an insult would provoke in most species. Instead, Jake simply smiled and began working on the device. "You're right. Our technology is pretty basic compared to yours," Jake admitted, as he carefully disassembled the communication array. "But sometimes, basic solutions work just fine." Within an hour, Jake had the device working perfectly. The Valdorian tested it thoroughly, clearly surprised by the quality of the repair. When Jake quoted his price, the merchant's expression shifted from skepticism to amazement. "That's very reasonable," the Valdorian said, clearly having expected to pay much more. "Fair price for good work," Jake replied with a shrug. "That's how I do business." After the Valdorian left, Zara continued to observe Jake as he worked on various other projects. She noticed that he treated every customer with the same respectful courtesy, regardless of their species or obvious social status. When a young Carillion apprentice brought in a damaged tool, Jake charged him almost nothing and spent extra time explaining how to prevent similar problems in the future. As the day wore on, Zara found herself increasingly intrigued by this human. He clearly possessed considerable skill, yet he showed none of the arrogance that usually accompanied such ability. More importantly, he seemed genuinely kind, the sort of person who would leave food for hungry strangers without expecting anything in return. When evening approached and Jake began closing up his shop, Zara made a decision that would change everything for her family. Taking a deep breath, she stepped out of the shadows and approached the shop's entrance. Jake looked up from his closing procedures and smiled when he saw her. "Well, hello there," he said warmly. "I hope you and your little ones enjoyed the food." Zara's throat felt tight with emotion. When was the last time someone had spoken to her without disgust or fear? We did, thank you. It has been many days since we ate so well." Jake's expression grew serious, but his tone remained gentle. "Are you the family that's been living in the old cargo bay? I've heard some of the other shopkeepers talking. They're not too pleased about having your kind around." Here it comes, Zara thought. Now he'll ask us to leave. Instead, Jake surprised her again. "That's a load of superstitious nonsense, if you ask me. You seem like decent folks just trying to get by. What's your name?" "Zara," she managed, still not quite believing this was happening. "Nice to meet you, Zara. I'm Jake, but I think I mentioned that earlier." He paused, seeming to consider his next words carefully. "Look, I don't want to overstep any boundaries here, but I've been thinking about your situation since this morning. I could use some help around the shop, and I'm guessing you might need work." Zara's heart leaped, but years of disappointment had taught her caution. "You would hire me? Even knowing what I am?" Jake looked genuinely confused. "What you are? You mean a skilled technician who's down on her luck? Because that's all I see." "I am albino," Zara said quietly. "My kind are considered cursed. We bring misfortune to those around us." Jake was quiet for a long moment, and Zara braced herself for the inevitable rejection. Instead, he laughed, not mockingly, but with what seemed like genuine amusement. "Cursed? That's what this is about?" Jake shook his head. "Zara, where I come from, we have a saying. Judge people by their actions, not their appearance. From what I've observed, you're a caring mother doing everything she can to protect her children. That tells me everything I need to know about your character." Tears gathered in Zara's red eyes. "You truly mean this? You would give us a chance?" "More than a chance," Jake said firmly. "I'm offering you a job, fair wages, and if you're interested, there's a small apartment above the shop that's been vacant for months. It's not much, but it's clean and safe." Zara felt her knees go weak with relief and gratitude. I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Jake suggested with a grin. "And then go get those kits of yours. I bet they'd like to see their new home." As Zara ran back to the cargo bay to collect her children, she felt something she hadn't experienced in months: hope. Not just hope for survival, but hope for a real future. This human, this Jake Morrison, had looked past the superstitions and prejudices that had defined her life for so long. He had seen her as a person, not as a curse. When she returned with Nick, Sava, and Lyra, Jake knelt down to their level and spoke to them with the same gentle kindness he had shown their mother. The kits, who had grown shy and fearful from months of rejection, slowly began to respond to his warmth. "I have some games and puzzles upstairs," Jake told them, "and tomorrow, if it's okay with your mama, I'll show you how some of these machines work." Nix's eyes lit up with excitement. "Really? You would teach me about machines?" Absolutely, Jake replied. I can always use another pair of skilled hands around here. As they climbed the stairs to the apartment, Zara felt tears streaming down her face. For the first time since Kess's death, her family was safe. They had food, shelter, and most importantly, they had found someone who cared about them as individuals rather than judging them by their genetic differences. The apartment was small but comfortable, with 2 bedrooms, a basic kitchen, and a living area with large windows that offered a view of the bustling district below. The kits ran around excitedly, exploring their new home while Zara and Jake discussed the details of her employment. I should warn you, Jake said as they sat at the small dining table. Some of the other business owners in this district might not be too happy about me hiring you. There could be some pushback. Zara nodded seriously. I understand. My presence has caused problems before. If you change your mind— I won't, Jake interrupted firmly. Let me worry about the neighbors. You just focus on your family and getting back on your feet. That night, as Zara tucked her kits into real beds for the first time in months, she marveled at the sudden change in their circumstances. Nix, Sava, and Lyra were already talking excitedly about their new friend Jake and all the things he had promised to show them. Mama, Nix said sleepily, why is the human so nice to us when everyone else is mean? Zara smoothed her son's white fur and considered the question. I think, little one, that some people are able to see with their hearts instead of just their eyes. Jake is one of those special people. Will we stay here forever? Sava asked from the bed she shared with her twin. I don't know about forever, Zara replied honestly. But we will stay as long as we are welcome, and we will be grateful for every day. As the kits drifted off to sleep, Zara stood by the window looking out at the lights of the district below. Somewhere in those lights were people who would still see her family as cursed, who would want them gone. But for the first time in months, she felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They were no longer alone. In the shop below, Jake was finishing his evening maintenance routines, already making mental notes about how to integrate Zara into his operation. He had meant what he said about not caring about superstitions, but he wasn't naive about the challenges they would face. Some of his regular customers might take their business elsewhere, and he might face pressure from other shop owners to reconsider his decision. But Jake Morrison had not built his successful business by avoiding difficult decisions. He had seen something in Zara's eyes that morning, a combination of desperation and fierce determination that reminded him of his own struggles when he first arrived on New Kepler Station. Everyone deserved a second chance, regardless of what species they belonged to or what genetic quirks they happened to carry. As he locked up the shop and headed to his own small apartment in the residential district, Jake smiled to himself. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but it would also bring the opportunity to help a deserving family build a better life. And in his experience, that was always worth whatever difficulties might arise. The industrial district settled into its nighttime rhythm of reduced activity but constant low-level hum. In the apartment above Morrison's Fix-It, 4 albino feline slept peacefully for the first time in months, their white fur catching the gentle glow of the station's artificial moonlight. And in that peaceful moment, a new chapter was beginning, one that would challenge prejudices, forge unlikely friendships, and prove that kindness could triumph over fear. 3 weeks had passed since Zara and her kits moved into the apartment above Morrison's Fix-It, and the changes in their lives felt almost too good to be true. Zara had proven herself to be an exceptional technician, her natural feline abilities with electronics enhanced by years of experience helping Kess maintain mining equipment. Jake found himself genuinely impressed by her problem-solving skills and attention to detail. The morning routine had become comfortable and familiar. Zara would rise early to prepare breakfast for the kits while Jake opened the shop below. Nix, whose fascination with machinery had only grown stronger, would often sneak downstairs before his sisters woke up to watch Jake perform the daily equipment checks. The twins, Sava and Lyra, had begun to lose some of their fearful timidity, though they still stayed close to their mother when strangers were around. On this particular morning, Zara was working on a complex navigational computer that had been giving Jake trouble for days. Her delicate claws moved with precision through the intricate circuitry, making adjustments that human fingers were too large to attempt safely. "There," she said with satisfaction, closing the access panel. The quantum pathway alignment was off by 0.03 degrees. Such a small error, but enough to throw off all the calculations. Jake tested the unit and grinned when it hummed to life, all diagnostic lights showing green. "I never would have caught that. The margin of error is so tiny that most standard diagnostic tools wouldn't even flag it. Feline senses are naturally attuned to such things," Zara explained, then caught herself. She still sometimes felt the need to justify her abilities, as if apologizing for being different. Jake seemed to sense her hesitation. "Zara, you don't need to downplay your skills around me. You're gifted, and I'm lucky to have you as a partner." Partner. The word sent a warm feeling through Zara's chest. It had been so long since anyone had treated her as an equal, as someone whose contributions were valued rather than merely tolerated. Their comfortable morning was interrupted by the arrival of Marcus Corwell, a human businessman who owned several shops in the district. Marcus was tall and impeccably dressed, with the kind of confident bearing that came from never having to worry about where his next meal would come from. He had been by the shop twice before, each time making pointed comments about Jake's questionable hiring decisions. "Morning, Jake," Marcus said, his tone friendly but his eyes cold as they settled on Zara. "I see you're still experimenting with your staffing choices." Jake's expression remained neutral, but Zara could see the tension in his shoulders. "Marcus, what can I do for you today?" "Actually, I'm here as a representative of the 7th District Business Association. We've been discussing your recent hiring decision, and there are some concerns." Zara felt her stomach drop. She had been waiting for this moment, had known it was only a matter of time before the other business owners decided to take action. "What kind of concerns?" Jake asked, his voice carefully controlled. Marcus glanced meaningfully at Zara before continuing. "Well, there have been complaints. Customers who feel uncomfortable. Some of our longtime clients are starting to take their business elsewhere." "Have any of my customers complained directly to me?" Jake asked. "That's not the point, Jake. It's about the reputation of the entire district. We've worked hard to build a respectable business community here, and having her kind around sends the wrong message." Zara wanted to shrink away, to make herself invisible as she had learned to do over the months of rejection and scorn. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the way Jake had straightened his spine, ready to defend her. Maybe it was the memory of her kits sleeping peacefully in their beds upstairs. Or maybe it was simply that she was tired of running. "My kind?" Zara said quietly, standing up from her workstation. "And what kind would that be, Mr. Corwell?" Marcus looked uncomfortable at being addressed directly. "Now look here. I have nothing personal against you, but everyone knows that Albino Feline are bad luck. It's not superstition, it's documented fact. Ships that carry your people have higher accident rates. Stations that house you experience more system failures." Jake stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. "That's enough, Marcus. I won't have you spreading ignorant nonsense in my shop." "It's not nonsense," Marcus insisted. "Check the statistics. The insurance companies have the data." Zara felt a familiar stab of pain at the accusation, but this time it was mixed with anger. "Mr. Corwell, have you actually examined these statistics you mention? Have you considered that Albino Feline are often assigned to the most dangerous jobs, the ships with the oldest equipment, because we are seen as expendable? Have you considered that we are often blamed for accidents we had nothing to do with, while our successes are ignored or credited to others? Marcus's expression faltered slightly, but he recovered quickly. That may be, but the perception remains, and perception affects business. Then maybe it's time to change people's perceptions, Jake said firmly. Zara has been working here for 3 weeks, and in that time we've had 0 accidents, higher customer satisfaction scores than ever before, and completed projects that I couldn't have managed alone. If that's bad luck, I'll take all I can get. You're making a mistake, Jake. The association has influence. We can make things very difficult for you if you insist on this course of action. The threat hung in the air between them, and Zara felt her resolve crumble. She couldn't let Jake suffer for her sake, couldn't let her presence destroy the life he had built. Perhaps Mr. Corwell is right, she said quietly. I should go. I never meant to cause trouble for you, Jake. You're not going anywhere, Jake said firmly, never taking his eyes off Marcus. And as for threats, Mr. Corwell, you might want to remember that this is my shop, on property I own outright. The association has no authority over my hiring decisions. Marcus's face reddened with anger. You'll regret this, Morrison. Don't say I didn't warn you. After Marcus stormed out, Jake turned to Zara with a gentle expression. I meant what I said. You're not going anywhere. But the association, the other business owners, I cannot let my presence harm you. Zara, listen to me. I've dealt with bullies like Marcus Corwell before. They make big threats, but they're mostly hot air. And even if they do try to cause trouble, that's my decision to make, not yours. Before Zara could respond, the shop door chimed again. This time it was Dr. Elizabeth Hayes, a human xenobiologist who had become one of Jake's regular customers. She was carrying a damaged specimen scanner that had been giving her problems with its molecular resolution settings. Morning, Jake, Dr. Hayes said cheerfully, then noticed Zara. Oh, you must be the Filari technician I've been hearing about. I'm Elizabeth Hayes. Zara hesitated, unsure of what the woman might have heard about her. I am Zara. How may we help you today? Dr. Hayes set her scanner on the workbench. This old thing has been acting up again. The molecular resolution keeps fluctuating, and I can't get stable readings for my research. Jake was about to examine the device when Zara gently touched his arm. May I? She asked. With Jake's nod of encouragement, Zara began examining the scanner. Her sensitive hearing picked up subtle variations in the device's operating frequency that would be inaudible to human ears. This is a beautiful piece of equipment, Zara said admiringly. Carillion manufacture, if I'm not mistaken. They make the finest scientific instruments in the galaxy. Dr. Hayes looked pleased. You know Carillion tech? Not many people can identify their work by sight. My mate worked in the mining industry. We encountered many different types of scanning equipment. Zara's voice caught slightly at the mention of Kess, but she continued working. The problem is not with the scanner itself, but with the power coupling. See here? The bioneural interface is slightly out of phase with the quantum matrix. Bioneural? Dr. Hayes leaned forward with interest. I thought this model used standard quantum processors. Most do, but this particular series incorporates organic neural pathways to enhance pattern recognition. It's what makes them so accurate, but it also makes them more sensitive to electromagnetic interference. Zara made several delicate adjustments, her movements precise and confident. Within minutes, the scanner was humming smoothly, its display showing crisp, stable readings. Dr. Hayes tested the device thoroughly, her expression growing more impressed with each test. This is remarkable. The resolution is actually better than when I first bought it. How did you know about the bioneural interface? That information isn't in any of the standard technical manuals. Carillion engineers sometimes share their knowledge with Filari technicians, Zara explained. They appreciate our natural sensitivity to organic technology interfaces. Would you mind if I asked you about your background? Dr. Hayes said. I'm always interested in meeting skilled xenotechnicians. Your expertise could be very valuable in my research. Zara felt a familiar tension. Here was where most conversations ended, where potential opportunities evaporated as soon as people learned what she was. I am Albino Feline, she said quietly, bracing herself for the inevitable change in Dr. Hayes's demeanor. Instead, the xenobiologist's eyes lit up with excitement. Albino? How fascinating! I've read papers about the genetic variations in Feline physiology, but I've never had the opportunity to meet anyone with the albino phenotype. The enhanced sensory capabilities must be extraordinary. Zara stared at her in shock. You have no objection to my condition? Dr. Hayes looked genuinely confused. Objection? Why would I object to a genetic variation that clearly provides enhanced abilities? From a scientific standpoint, Albino Feline represent one of the most interesting examples of beneficial mutations in known species. But the superstitions, the bad luck. Oh, that old nonsense, Dr. Hayes waved dismissively. Correlation versus causation, basic statistical fallacy. Any scientist worth their degree knows that superstitions have no basis in objective reality. Jake grinned at Zara's stunned expression. See? Not everyone in the galaxy believes in ancient prejudices. Dr. Hayes paid for the repair and left her contact information. If you're ever interested in some consulting work, I could use someone with your expertise. I'm studying bioluminescent organisms, and the enhanced sensory perception of Albino Feline would be invaluable for detecting subtle variations in bioelectrical fields. After Dr. Hayes left, Zara sat down heavily on a nearby stool, overwhelmed by the morning's emotional roller coaster. You okay? Jake asked gently. I had forgotten, Zara said softly, that not everyone sees us as cursed. For so long, all I encountered was fear and hatred. I began to believe that perhaps the superstitions were true, that we truly were cursed. Zara, look at me. Jake waited until she met his eyes. The only curse here is ignorance. People like Marcus Corwell are afraid of anything they don't understand, so they create stories to justify their fear. But people like Dr. Hayes, people who think for themselves, they see you for who you really are. That afternoon brought another test of their resolve. Zara was working alone in the shop while Jake ran errands when 3 Feline customers entered. She recognized them immediately as dock workers from the shipping district, their golden eyes and tawny fur marking them as typical of their species. Their expressions shifted from neutral to hostile the moment they saw her. Where is the human? Demanded the largest of the 3, a male with intricate patterns shaved into his arm fur. Mr. Morrison is out at the moment, Zara replied professionally. I am Zara, his partner. How may I assist you? Partner? The Feline's ears flattened against his head in disgust. A human claims an albino as partner? This is worse than we heard. The second Feline, a female with elaborate jewelry woven into her mane, stepped closer to the workbench. We heard rumors that one of our kind was working here, but we had to see for ourselves. How dare you bring shame upon all Feline by associating with aliens? Zara felt the old, familiar pain, but she forced herself to remain calm. I am simply earning an honest living, same as you. Honest? The third Feline, younger than the others, spat on the floor. There is nothing honest about cursed ones like you spreading your misfortune to innocent species. The human doesn't understand what he's done by harboring you. Please, Zara said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. If you have work that needs doing, I am qualified to help. If not, I ask that you leave peacefully. The large male leaned across the workbench, his claws extended in a threatening gesture. We're not here for repairs, curse-bearer. We're here to warn the human that his association with you will bring nothing but disaster, and to make it clear that no respectable Feline will do business with anyone who employs your kind. At that moment, Nix appeared at the top of the stairs that led to their apartment. He had obviously been listening to the confrontation, and his young face was twisted with hurt and confusion. The female Feline noticed him and hissed, "Offspring? How many of your cursed bloodline are you breeding here, contaminating this place?" That was too much for Zara. The protective rage that had been building inside her erupted. "Enough!" she snarled, her own claws extending as she stood to her full height. "You will not speak of my children in such terms. They are innocent kits who have done nothing to deserve your hatred." "Innocent?" The young Feline laughed harshly. "There is no such thing as an innocent curse-bearer. They should have been abandoned at birth as tradition demands." Zara's vision went red with fury. She had endured insults against herself for years, but threatening her children was a line she would not allow anyone to cross. She was about to lunge across the workbench when Jake's voice cut through the tension. "That's enough." Jake stood in the doorway, his expression colder than Zara had ever seen it. "I believe the lady asked you to leave." The three Feline turned toward him, and the large male's expression shifted to one of false sympathy. "Human, you do not understand the danger you are in. These cursed ones will bring nothing but misfortune to you and your business. We are trying to help you see reason." "The only thing I see," Jake replied, walking slowly toward the group, "is 3 bigots harassing my partner and threatening her children. So I'm going to ask you one more time, politely, to leave my shop." "Or what?" the female challenged. "You are one human against 3 Feline. Our reflexes are faster, our claws are sharper. What exactly do you think you can do?" Jake stopped a few feet away from them and smiled. But there was no warmth in it. "Ma'am, where I come from, we have a saying. It's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. And right now, you're threatening my family. I suggest you test my reflexes at your own risk." There was something in Jake's tone, a quiet confidence that made the 3 Feline hesitate. They had expected the human to be intimidated by their threats, but instead he seemed perfectly prepared for a confrontation. The large male was the first to back down. "This is not over, human. When disaster strikes, remember that we tried to warn you." "I'll take my chances," Jake replied coolly. After the 3 Feline left, Zara slumped against the workbench, emotionally drained from the confrontation. Nix ran down the stairs and threw his arms around his mother, his small body trembling. "Mama, why do they hate us so much?" he asked, tears streaming down his white-furred cheeks. Zara held her son close, struggling to find words that could explain such senseless prejudice to a child. "Sometimes, little one, people are afraid of things they don't understand. And when people are afraid, they sometimes say and do cruel things." Jake knelt down beside them, placing a gentle hand on Nix's shoulder. "But you know what? Their fear and hatred says nothing about you and everything about them. You're a smart, kind, brave kid, and anyone who can't see that isn't worth worrying about." "But what if they're right?" Nix asked. "What if we really are cursed? What if we bring bad things to you and the nice lady doctor?" "Nix," Jake said seriously, "do you remember what I taught you about machines?" The kit nodded, wiping his eyes with the back of his paw. "I told you that every machine works according to logical principles, right? Cause and effect, action and reaction. Well, the universe works the same way. There's no such thing as curses or magic or bad luck that follows people around because of how they look. There are only actions and consequences." But the other Feline say, "The other Feline are wrong," Jake said firmly. "And I can prove it. In the 3 weeks your family has been here, how many accidents have we had?" "None," Nick said quietly. "How many customers have complained about our work?" "None." "How many good things have happened? We've fixed more machines than ever before, made new friends like Dr. Hayes, and our business is doing better than it has all year. If your family was really cursed, wouldn't the opposite be true?" Nix considered this carefully, his young mind working through the logical argument. So the other Feline are just wrong? They're not just wrong, Jake said. They're choosing to be wrong, even when evidence shows them the truth. That's what we call prejudice, and it's one of the worst kinds of ignorance. That evening, after the twins had fallen asleep, Zara and Jake sat in the small living room discussing the day's events. Nix was in his room, supposedly sleeping, but Zara suspected he was actually working on one of the small mechanical puzzles Jake had given him. "I'm sorry about today," Zara said. "I never wanted to bring such trouble to your door." "You didn't bring trouble," Jake replied. "Trouble existed long before you arrived. The only difference is that now it has a target. But your business will be fine. Better than fine, actually. Dr. Hayes has already referred 2 other scientists to us, and word is getting around the academic community that we can handle advanced alien technology. We're going to have more work than we can handle." Zara felt a warm glow of pride at his words. "You really believe we can succeed despite the prejudice?" "I don't just believe it, I know it. Quality work speaks louder than ignorant superstitions. Give it time, and even some of those Feline dock workers will swallow their pride and bring their equipment here when they need real expertise." "And if they don't?" Jake grinned. "Then we'll build our business with customers who appreciate skill over superstition. Sometimes the best revenge against prejudice is simply living well and proving the bigots wrong." As if summoned by their conversation, Nix appeared in the doorway, clutching one of his mechanical puzzles. "I solved it," he announced proudly, holding up a small device that had been transformed into something entirely new. Jake examined the puzzle and whistled appreciatively. "Nix, this isn't just solved. You've completely redesigned it. This is 3 times more complex than the original." The kit beamed with pride. "I thought it was too simple, so I made it better. Is that okay?" "More than okay," Jake said. "This is brilliant work. You've got the mind of a true engineer." Zara watched the interaction with deep emotion. In just 3 weeks, Jake had given her son something that months of rejection had nearly destroyed: confidence in his own abilities. Nix was no longer the fearful, withdrawn Kit who had hidden in cargo bays. He was becoming the curious, brilliant young Feline he was meant to be. "Jake," she said softly, "I don't know how to thank you for what you've given us." "You don't need to thank me," Jake replied, ruffling Nix's fur affectionately. "You're giving me just as much. I've got the best partner I could ask for, and I'm watching 3 amazing kids grow up right before my eyes. I should be thanking you." Outside the window, New Kepler Station continued its endless cycle of day and night, its millions of inhabitants going about their lives in the vast complexity of galactic civilization. Somewhere in those lights were people who still believed in ancient superstitions, who would always see Zara and her family as cursed. But somewhere else were people like Jake and Dr. Hayes, people who judged others by their actions rather than their appearance. And in the small apartment above Morrison's Fix-It, 4 albino Feline were learning that they belonged to the second group, that their future was not defined by the prejudices of the past. The road ahead would not be easy, but for the first time in months it felt like a road worth traveling. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new customers, and new opportunities to prove that skill and kindness could triumph over fear and ignorance. And whatever came next, they would face it together, an unlikely family bound not by genetics or species, but by something far stronger, the simple recognition that everyone deserves a chance to build a better life. 6 months after that confrontational day with the Feline dock workers, Morrison's Fix-It had become one of the most respected repair shops in the 7th District. Word of their expertise with complex alien technology had spread throughout New Kepler Station, bringing customers from sectors Jake had never even visited. Zara had proven herself not just as a skilled technician, but as a natural teacher, training Jake in the finer points of Feline sensory techniques and bioneural interface repair. The apartment above the shop had been transformed into a real home. Nix, now 8 years old, had his own workshop area where he created increasingly sophisticated mechanical devices. His latest project was a translation matrix that could interface directly with different species' communication methods, adapting not just language but cultural context and emotional undertones. The twins, Sava and Lyra, had blossomed under Jake's patient guidance, their natural Feline agility combined with human mechanical knowledge, making them formidable junior technicians, despite their young age. On this particular morning, everything changed with an emergency call from the station's Central Operations Center. Jake answered the comm, expecting a routine repair request, but the voice on the other end was tight with panic. "Morrison's Fix-It? This is Commander Sarah Chen, Operations Chief. We have a critical situation that requires immediate assistance." Jake straightened, sensing the urgency. "What can we do for you, Commander?" "Our primary life support quantum processor has suffered a cascade failure. The backup systems are holding, but they won't last more than 18 hours. We've tried every repair shop on the station, but the technology is too advanced. Someone mentioned that you handle complex alien tech?" Zara appeared at Jake's shoulder, having heard the conversation. Her red eyes were wide with recognition and concern. "Commander, what type of processor are we dealing with?" Jake asked. "Arconian Bioneural Matrix, integrated with Corellian quantum stabilizers. It's a hybrid system that most techs won't even touch. The manufacturer is 6 months away by fastest transport, and replacement parts aren't available anywhere in this sector." Jake felt his stomach drop. Arconian bioneural technology was notoriously complex, requiring not just technical skill but an intuitive understanding of organic-synthetic interfaces that few species possessed. But Zara was already nodding, her expression determined. "We'll take the job," Jake said without hesitation. "I have to warn you," Commander Chen continued. "If we can't get this system running again, we'll have to begin emergency evacuations. We're talking about 3 million people, and the evacuation fleet can't handle that kind of volume. There will be casualties." After ending the call, Jake looked at Zara seriously. "You sure about this? Arconian bioneural tech is exactly what my species evolved to understand," Zara finished. "Jake, this is why Feline were originally brought into galactic civilization. Our nervous systems naturally interface with bioneural technologies in ways that other species cannot replicate. But the pressure, the stakes, are precisely why we must succeed." Zara was already gathering her tools, her movements quick and efficient. "If we fail, people die. If we succeed, we prove once and for all that Albino Feline are not cursed, that we can be the salvation rather than the doom." Nix appeared in the doorway, his mechanical puzzle forgotten. "Mama? What's happening?" Zara knelt down to his level, speaking calmly despite the urgency of the situation. "The station's life support is broken, little one. Mama and Jake are going to fix it." "Can I help?" The question came not just from Nix, but from both twins, who had emerged from their room. Jake started to shake his head, but Zara placed a gentle hand on his arm. "This is Arconian bioneural technology. The sensitivity required—" She paused, looking at her children's earnest faces. "Actually, yes, you can help. All of you have inherited enhanced sensory abilities. You might detect things that even I would miss." The journey to the Central Operations Center took them through parts of New Kepler Station that Jake had never seen. The corridors here were wider, more impressive, designed to handle the massive flow of people and equipment that kept the station running. But today, those corridors buzzed with tension and barely controlled panic. Commander Chen met them at the entrance to the life support complex, her expression skeptical as she took in their group. "Mr. Morrison, I was expecting a larger team. This is my partner, Zara." "And her assistants," Jake replied diplomatically, not mentioning that the assistants were children. "Zara is our bioneural specialist." The commander's expression shifted to surprise when she noticed Zara's distinctive appearance, but she said nothing. The urgency of the situation outweighed any personal prejudices she might have harbored. The life support complex was a cathedral of technology, filled with humming machines and displays showing the vital signs of the entire station. At its heart lay the damaged processor, a massive construct that seemed to pulse with its own organic rhythm. Jake could see immediately why conventional technicians had failed. The device was less machine than living organism, its bio-neural pathways forming patterns that defied standard engineering logic. The failure started in the primary cortex interface, Commander Chen explained, leading them to the massive structure. It cascaded through the neural network, causing systematic shutdowns across all primary functions. Zara approached the processor with reverence, her hands hovering just above its surface. Jake watched as her pupils dilated, her enhanced senses reading information invisible to human perception. "This is not a mechanical failure," she said softly. "The bio-neural matrix is experiencing a form of trauma response. Something has frightened it into shutdown." "Frightened?" Commander Chen looked skeptical. "It's a machine." "No," Nix piped up, stepping closer to the processor. "Mama's right. It's scared." "Can't you feel it?" Jake watched in amazement as the three kits arranged themselves around different aspects of the massive device, their small hands held just above various neural interface points. Their red eyes were wide and focused, reading patterns that even their mother was straining to detect. "There," Sava pointed to a cluster of organic conduits near the base of the processor. "It hurts there." "And here," Lyra added, indicating another section. "Something made it remember bad things." Zara's expression grew troubled as she followed her daughter's guidance. "They're right. The bio-neural matrix has accessed traumatic memory engrams. But that should be impossible. These processors are specifically designed to prevent psychological integration with past experiences." "Unless," Nick said thoughtfully, his young mind working through the puzzle, something made it think it was back home. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Back home? You mean Arconia?" Zara nodded grimly. "The Arconian homeworld was destroyed in the bioweapon attacks 50 years ago. If this processor somehow accessed those memory patterns, it would experience the death of its entire species," Jake finished, understanding flooding through him. "It's not malfunctioning, it's grieving." Commander Chen stared at them in disbelief. "You're telling me that our life support system is having an emotional breakdown?" "In essence, yes," Zara confirmed. "And conventional repair techniques won't work because you can't fix trauma with tools. You have to heal it with understanding." Jake watched as Zara began what could only be described as therapy for a machine. Her hands moved in slow, careful patterns across the bio-neural interfaces, her voice a soft murmur of comfort and reassurance. The kits positioned themselves at key points around the processor, their enhanced sensory abilities allowing them to monitor the system's emotional state in ways that no human technology could replicate. Hours passed as they worked, with Jake serving as their coordinator and interface with the increasingly anxious operations team. The backup life support systems were showing strain, and evacuation preparations had begun in the outer sectors of the station. "The neural pathways are beginning to stabilize," Zara reported, exhaustion evident in her voice. "But the core trauma matrix is still active. It's fighting us because it believes that functioning will somehow cause more death." "Can you convince it otherwise?" Commander Chen asked, her professional composure cracking slightly. "Maybe," Nick said unexpectedly. "But not by telling it. We have to show it." The 8-year-old Kit moved to the primary interface console, his small fingers dancing across controls that were designed for adult Arconian hands. Jake started to intervene, but Zara caught his arm. "Let him work," she said softly. "He understands something we don't." Nix's modifications to the interface were unlike anything Jake had ever seen. Instead of trying to override the processor's traumatic memories, he was creating new memory patterns, images and sensations of life thriving on New Kepler Station, of families like his own finding safety and happiness among the stars. The processor needs to know, Nix explained as he worked, that the Arconian death wasn't the end of everything, that life goes on, that there's still beauty and love and hope in the galaxy. Sava and Lyra joined their brother, their combined sensory abilities feeding positive emotional patterns into the bio-neural matrix. Jake watched in awe as the massive processor began to respond, its organic components literally brightening as it absorbed these new, hopeful memory engrams. The transformation was gradual at first, then accelerated as the processor began to integrate the new patterns with its existing neural pathways. The traumatic memories didn't disappear. They became part of a larger narrative that included both loss and renewal, death and new life. When the primary systems finally came back online, the relief in the control center was palpable. But Jake noticed something else. The processor was functioning better than it ever had before. The emotional healing process had actually optimized its performance, allowing it to operate with an efficiency that purely mechanical systems could never achieve. Commander Chen approached their group with an expression of profound gratitude and amazement. "I don't know how to thank you. What you've done here, it shouldn't have been possible." "It was only possible because of their unique abilities," Jake replied, gesturing to Zara and her kits. "No human technician could have achieved this. Hell, most Arconian technicians probably couldn't have done it either." News of their success spread rapidly throughout the station. Within hours, Jake's comm was buzzing with interview requests, job offers, and messages of congratulation. But the most significant response came from an unexpected source. The 3 Falari dock workers who had threatened them months earlier appeared at the shop that evening, their expressions humble and ashamed. The large male who had been their leader stepped forward, his ears flattened in a gesture of submission. "We have come to apologize," he said formally, "and to ask forgiveness for our ignorance." Zara looked at them with a mixture of wariness and curiosity. "I appreciate your words. But what has changed?" "What has changed," the female Falari replied, "is that the entire station knows what you did today. You and your kits saved 3 million lives using abilities that only Albino Feline possess. We have spent months spreading the lie that you were cursed, when in reality, you were blessed with gifts the rest of us lack." The young Falari stepped forward, his expression earnest. "We have spoken with our clan elders, shared the recordings of today's events. The Council of Falaris Prime has issued a formal statement declaring the superstitions about Albino Feline to be outdated and harmful to our species' reputation." Jake felt a surge of satisfaction at this vindication, but also noticed that Zara's response was more measured than his own. "I accept your apology," she said carefully, "but understand that forgiveness is a process, not a moment. You wounded not just me, but my children. Trust must be rebuilt slowly." "We understand," the large male replied, "but we hope that you will allow us to begin that process. Our shipping cooperative would be honored to offer you exclusive contracts for all our technical needs." After the 3 Falari left, Jake found himself alone with Zara on the small balcony that overlooked the district. The lights of New Kepler Station stretched out below them, and somewhere in those lights, 3 million people were breathing clean air because of what they had accomplished together. "You know what this means?" Jake said, putting his arm around Zara's shoulders. "That we've proven ourselves?" Zara replied. "More than that, you've changed the galaxy's perception of your people. Those recordings of today's work will spread throughout known space. Other Albino Feline won't have to face what you faced." Zara leaned against him, her exhaustion finally showing. "I hope so, But more importantly, my kits will grow up knowing that they are valued for who they are, not feared for what they represent. Speaking of the kits, Jake said, did you see what Nix did with that interface? That wasn't just technical skill, that was pure innovation. I think we're looking at a future engineer who's going to revolutionize bio-neural technology. All three of them showed remarkable abilities today, Zara agreed. Perhaps that's the real gift of our genetic difference. Not just enhanced senses, but enhanced empathy. The ability to truly understand the emotional states of bio-neural systems. From inside the apartment came the sound of the kits laughing as they shared their day's adventures, their voices bright with the confidence of children who had just discovered they could change the world. Jake smiled, remembering the scared, hungry family he had found hiding in a cargo bay 6 months ago. "You know what I realized today?" he said. "What's that?" "I'm the lucky one in this partnership. I get to watch 3 brilliant young minds grow up, work alongside the most skilled technician I've ever met, and be part of something that's genuinely making the galaxy a better place." Zara turned to look at him, her red eyes bright with unshed tears. "Jake Morrison, when I first met you, I thought you were just a kind human who took pity on a desperate family. I never imagined that you would become—" "What?" "Family," she said simply. "Not just an employer or a friend, but true family. You've given us more than jobs and shelter. You've given us belonging." Jake felt his own eyes growing misty. "The feeling's mutual. You've all become the family I never knew I was missing." As if summoned by their conversation, all 3 kits appeared on the balcony, clustering around their mother and Jake with the easy familiarity of loved ones. "Are we famous now?" Sava asked with wide-eyed curiosity. "You're heroes," Jake corrected gently. "There's a difference." "What's the difference?" Nix wanted to know. "Heroes help people because it's the right thing to do," Jake explained. "Fame is just something that sometimes happens afterward." "Will there be more people to help?" Lyra asked. Zara laughed, the sound rich with love and contentment. "Oh, little star, I suspect there will always be more people to help. The galaxy is full of broken things that need fixing, and now everyone knows how good we are at fixing them." 6 months later, Morrison's Fix-It had expanded into Morrison's Bio-Neural Solutions, occupying an entire building in the now prestigious 7th District. Zara had been invited to speak at engineering conferences throughout known space, and several universities had offered her research positions. But she had chosen to stay on New Kepler Station, working alongside Jake to train the next generation of bio-neural specialists. Nix, at 9 years old, had published his first technical paper on emotional integration in artificial consciousness systems. The twins, now 4, were already showing aptitudes that suggested they would follow in their family's footsteps. And Jake had discovered that teaching young Falari technicians was every bit as rewarding as he had hoped. The transformation extended beyond their immediate family. The 7th District had become known throughout the sector as a place where skill mattered more than species, where innovation thrived alongside tolerance. Other families who had faced discrimination found their way to the district, knowing they would find acceptance and opportunity. On quiet evenings, when the shop was closed and the kits were asleep, Jake and Zara would sometimes sit on their balcony and marvel at how much had changed. The scared, desperate family hiding in a cargo bay had become respected members of the galactic scientific community. The lonely human mechanic had found not just business partners, but the family he had always dreamed of having. And somewhere in the vast complexity of New Kepler Station, 3 million people went about their lives breathing clean air. Their very existence a testament to the power of compassion over prejudice, understanding over fear, and the simple truth that everyone deserves a chance to prove their worth. The galaxy was still full of challenges, still plagued by the ancient prejudices and superstitions that had nearly destroyed Zara's family. But it was also full of people like Dr. Elizabeth Hayes, Commander Sarah Chen, and countless others who were willing to judge individuals by their actions rather than their appearance. And with each success, each problem solved and life saved, the balance shifted a little more toward understanding. In the end, Jake reflected, that might be humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. Not advanced technology or military might, but the simple recognition that everyone, regardless of species or appearance or genetic quirks, had the potential to make the universe a better place. It was a lesson that the galaxy was slowly learning, one rescued family at a time. And in the quiet of their home above the shop that had started it all, 4 Albino Feline slept peacefully, secure in the knowledge that they belonged exactly where they were. Their white fur caught the gentle glow of the station's artificial starlight, no longer a mark of shame, but a symbol of the beauty that could emerge when compassion triumphed over fear.